Welcome to today's episode of the Better Podcast. I'm Nicholas Ayers.
I'm Preston Schmidley.
And today we have on a very special guest from McKinney, Texas, Mr. James Jenkins, the mayor of McKinney, Texas. And if you don't know James, then he's a great person to follow. But we're going to get into it on my mark.
Flavor.
Yeah, boy.
Hey, yo, check 1, 2. This is Flavor Flav in the building for the Better Agency. Nicholas wants everyone to know how they need to listen to the truth that Nick and Preston are giving them. Flavor Flav's shouting y'all out right now. You heard me? So hold it down and keep making it a better agency. All right?
All right, welcome again to today's episode of the Better Podcast. Mr. James Jenkins, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
You are, I think, here's what I like about James. You either really love James or you really don't. And there's no middle ground with you. People know exactly where you stand. They know exactly what you believe. They know exactly who you are. It probably takes them less than 15 seconds to get a real good glimpse of you, and people form an opinion about you. Do you like that about yourself? Because I feel like for a lot of reasons I'm that same way. You either really like me or you really don't, and it's okay either way. But I like that. I like knowing exactly where I stand with others and all that. How do you take that?
You know, it's kind of par for the course, man. I will be 37 years old in about a month and a half. And what you just described, I have said myself on multiple occasions. I really have two speeds. I'm either on or I'm off. There really isn't a middle ground.
Have you always been that way?
As long as I can remember. Growing up, it was a little bit different. It may not surprise anyone to hear this. Any psychologist listening to this probably are just shaking their head with their face in their palm. Because I was homeschooled K through 12. I was the awkward, unpopular kid who was a lot smarter than my peers. But I was never one of the cool kids. It wasn't until I got to college that I really figured out, I was like, oh, it's totally okay to not be one of the cool kids. But that bad behavior, attention seeking, immaturity, it's in adolescence. What that looks like when I grew up was what you see now of being just a very candid, direct person who has big opinions and states them clearly and doesn't apologize. And I obviously, the older I get, the more refined I get. And the more I realize, hey, you don't have to say everything that is your opinion.
Yeah,
that's definitely changed in the last 4 or 5 years. Probably I'm a whole lot more curated with what comes out of my mouth, but I don't really pull any punches, and I'm okay if you don't like me. That's fine. There's a little more than 7 billion humans on the planet, and there's plenty of room for likes and dislikes and different personality types and whatnot. I think I just realized, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 years ago with the launch of this thing that is now Riskwell, you got to be who you are and let the market decide. Plenty of people don't want to do business with you because of XYZ. There's so many variables in this game that we're all playing. I think you're just more successful and you're able to be more satisfied with whatever you want to be, whatever your flavor is, whatever that looks like. You are more successful if you just figure out who you are and then just be that person. And if people like it, great. If people don't like it, that's okay too.
Well, I feel like there's a certain level of freedom, mental freedom, that people who are that way. And I think the good thing about you is that you have a level of, we were talking about this before we started, but there's a level of self-awareness I think that you have that is refreshing. Because a lot of people, they could just be loudmouths and they could just say whatever they want. I believe this and this, da, 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 da. And they have no self-awareness situationally or about themselves or anything. I think that's where you kind of, to me it says maturity. You call it refinement. It's maturity in my own opinion. But I feel, and you tell me what you think about this, there's a freedom that I think when you have that in your brain, it allows everything else in your life to just move easier and like it's just covered in lube. It just slides right down the hill.
I'm going to try to avoid that mental picture that just came in, but you know, I got to say I really agree with that, man. And one of the biggest questions with IAOA, the Facebook group where we all met, except for Schmidley, because I knew him back from the dark days in the farmers world, back when I was a captive agent. You know, I try to ask myself the question constantly: is there anything I have to add to this conversation? Is there, if I post this, does it add anything? Because if I'm the fifth person with the same opinion, I'm just not going to comment. You know,
Yeah.
I'll like the post and just move on. Because you know, there takes a certain amount of discipline to just stay focused. And one of my things for 21 is, you know, silly enough, spend less time just piddling on Facebook, of being intentional. If I'm going to be on social media, there's a specific focus. I'm checking my groups. I'm searching for keywords. Has anybody posted anything that I need to get in and drop a link or a tag or something? You know, briefly look at the threads. Like, is there anything here I really want to jump in on? Otherwise, go prospect. Go do something in your office.
I wish a lot more people followed that advice.
You know, there's so much just low level in the whole social media ecosystem. There's so many people I feel like post reflexively or comment reflexively without really thinking, am I adding anything to the dialogue here? But I know we don't want to spend our whole podcast talking about social media in particular, but to your point, yeah, there's definitely freedom. Almost like a politician, where you've got a message, where you've got an agenda, you've got a platform that you're trying to stay on. And as long as it fits the message, game on. If you like it, if you don't like it, whatever. You know, that whole speak your truth thing, whatever that looks like. Because the beauty of this is everybody has different opinions. Everybody brings something different to the table.
I think the thing to take from that, though, is you've really defined, you've spent the time as an individual to articulate who you are and what you believe. And I think that's cool, but it didn't really stop there. I think that's a way of living for you. You've taken a step further to define your brand, your target audience, and where where most people, they spend their energy in all these directions. You took all that energy and you kind of went like this in one, and more like literally like a laser focus. It could have just been a flashlight where the light goes everywhere, but it's not that bright. You took that all and channeled it into a very specific part of the insurance world. And I think, to me, that's, you've had rapid growth, and I'd like to talk about that too. You've had a lot of rapid growth. You've had some really big wins, and they're wins that I think a lot of people scratch their head and go, how did that happen? Right. Where you've allowed yourself.
My head too, honestly.
But and that's, that's good humility. But like, there's an element where I think it's really worth talking about, where, you made a conscious decision to say no to a lot of things and yes to a very few things. And that you've been receiving the dividends from that, and I often equate this to like the medical field, but it's like, almost always a brain surgeon is going to make more than, an ER doctor. Right. And as you've kind of decided, I want to be the brain surgeon of my, of the real estate vertical and the doing middle market commercial. I'd like to talk a little bit about that and when you felt that decision was necessary for you, or when you really decided that was the direction to go in.
So back in February of 2016, I was still a captive agent at that time, and I stumbled on my best client ever. He was a real estate investor, had 9 properties. At that point, I wasn't writing commercial. I was your typical copy and paste. It sounds exactly like everybody else insurance agent. And this guy had 9 rental properties, and my mouth wrote a check, my butt couldn't cash, and I just figured out how to get it done. Because at that point, I only had access to Foremost for those properties, and thankfully, it was a good fit. That was a very huge learning experience. I got done with that account, and I'm sitting there going, crap, this is good money. I like that. I want more of that. How do I get more of that? And I asked him, I was like, hey, you have friends in the investor world, right? And he was like, yeah. It's like, I want more clients like you. And I was just really real with him. I was like, you're exactly the kind of client I want to work with. I want more of you. How do I find more of you? Where do you hang out? Where are the investors? And I just dove hard into that. There was an event coming up like a month or two later with a software company called Propelio. They were holding events back then. And, I just jumped in. I'd never gone to this thing. I didn't know these people. I call up the guy who's doing the event. I'm like, hey, I want to sponsor. How much is it? He was like, $750. Who are you? I was like, okay, well, I'm going to sponsor. Where do I send my money? And at that point, $750 was a fortune because
Yeah.
I wasn't making the most money. I didn't have staff like I should have. My best year in 7 years was $564,000 in premium. So, you can do some simple math and recognize that's only about 75 grand in new business commission. Wasn't exactly blowing the doors off of anything. But that event got me in the door, and then the next event and the next event, and showing
What
up at these
was that during
masterminds.
your captive days, or was this
Yeah,
during
I was still in the captive world at that
Oh,
time.
that wasn't
Um,
75,000 then.
Yeah, I was being kind to my former self, I think. I don't know. But that concurrently with that, I saw the need for advanced education. I saw I have a master's degree in public speaking and crisis management. Strangely enough, I had no idea how useful the crisis management piece was going to be. But I really see the value in designations, in advanced training. And right about that same time, I'd started doing the CIC program, Certified Insurance Counselor, with the National Alliance. And I wasn't just the only agent representing my company in that room. I was the only captive agent, period. There
Wow.
weren't any other captive agents from any company in that
That's a
room.
statement.
And time again, I got so sick and tired of answering the question, why are you a captive agent? And they said it with so much disdain in their voice. It was so much like, ugh. And I didn't have a good answer for them, honestly. That combined with just a lack of confidence in the overall direction of the company, they do a couple of things very, very, very well. There is a space in the market for the captive agency, just like there is for the direct writer. People like to bash Lemonade, and personally, I find Lemonade detestable. But they definitely have a place in the market for that direct writer, that InsurTech, the progressive direct channel, Geico, whatever. The market, the beautiful thing about insurance is there's a place for everybody, because there's like 12 different basic avatars of a client. And depending on what you
Right.
want to be, there's a place for everybody. It doesn't make sense to me when people just reflexively bash one segment of the market, because I'm like, I don't want to write that client. I don't even want to talk to that client. I'm so glad there's a place for that client to go and get their online do-it-yourself quote and go away, so they never even call my
Sure.
office.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I kind of stumbled into the real estate thing. And then CIC gave me some really good talking points, a lot of advanced knowledge that most agents never invest in themselves. And I saw CRM, Certified Risk Manager. I asked around and I looked around, and there's only like 5,000 CRMs in the whole country.
Mm.
And I don't know, but maybe one or two insurance agency owners that have CRM. David Carruthers is one. Jared Morgan in Kentucky is one that has CIC and CRM after their name. It's pretty rare. And I love the whole idea of talking about insurance within the context of risk management, because so many people on the street, you ask Joe Public, how does insurance relate to risk management? They're going to think basically that they're interchangeable terms. And as anyone who is engaging in the practice of risk management knows, insurance is just the contractual transfer of risk. It's the funding of risk. The whole rest of the risk management process, from identification, analysis, control, and management, that's where the real meat and potatoes is. It doesn't matter if you've got a good insurance program. If you suck at the other parts of risk management,
Sure.
your total cost of risk is going to be through the freaking roof. And you're going to think that your insurance program sucks, when in reality, your risk management program sucks. And that's really where we have been able to distinguish ourselves from a lot of insurance people, because I recognize that the product of an insurance policy, yeah, it's how I make most of my money. But if all you're doing is buying insurance, oh, buddy, you got another thing coming. So we have a lot of conversations with folks that most agency owners and producers just don't have. They aren't talking about the things that we're talking about. And that really comes in handy, because, when you read these books, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, Sales EQ by Jeb Blunt, Fanatical Prospecting also by Jeb Blunt, et cetera, et cetera. I'm a big reader. I wasn't before 2018, but I became a big reader because I recognized a deficiency in my skill set, just stuff that I wasn't good at. I want to find those areas and increase them, but I digress. The heuristic in the human brain, just understanding the basics of neuroscience. If you look and sound like everybody else, your brain is all about efficiency, and it will literally just tune someone out. If you look and sound like everybody else, people will literally not even hear you because their brain will reflexively tune you out.
Sounds
So,
like somebody's read Sales EQ lately.
yeah,
that's a
you
good
gotta,
one, man.
breaking the pattern,
Yeah.
understanding people's heuristic. When you say, "Hey, can I get you a quote?" You freaking sound like everybody else, man. Like,
Yeah.
I removed the word quote from my website. I removed it from my collateral. I removed it from like the only place you see it is on the button, because we found, and it's so silly, but we found that when we didn't have the word quote on the little call to action button, our click-throughs dropped significantly
Yeah,
because
it's a
people
matter
were
of
like,
simplicity. People,
I don't want a recommendation. I want a quote. It's like, I don't want a offer. I want a quote. It's like,
Hey, bro,
okay.
always be testing, man. That's what I tell people. It's like a lot of people would have just assumed one or the other and ran with it. You figured
Yeah.
out which one converted and you went with it. I mean, that's
Well,
smart.
because I did schedule a conversation, schedule a consultation, get your free call here, recommendation, offer, policy, proposal, quote, da da da. Like, quote just works. I hate the word quote. It's transactional.
sure.
There's no value there.
but consumers get it.
But the consumer is looking for the word quote so they can tap their finger.
Yep.
So
Makes
yeah.
sense.
Now
Anyway.
you came over from captive. You launched independent. When did you launch independent? What year?
April 1st of 19 was our launch date.
April 1st of 19. So at the time of this recording, it's only been a little over
20
a year
months.
and a half. About
Yeah, we're 20 months in.
20 months in. Now, when you started as captive, did you already start with the staff? Did you already have those people in place, or did you have to hire those people after the fact?
I wasn't staffing correctly when I was a captive agent. I had one full-time CSR, and myself and my wife was kind of a director of ops type of position. She cracked the whip on my shoulders. I still have some scars back there.
Hey, whatever
but
you guys do off camera is totally your
Yeah.
business.
yeah,
Making
that's
it right to criticize other people's lives in that department.
no, but she knows exactly how to motivate me at the office, and she stepped away to be a mom, and she's a full-time professional mom for now, and probably
That's
will be
awesome.
for about 3 more years. And she's already itching to get back in the office. She misses it, and we miss her for sure. For anybody that's read EOS, I'm a visionary by nature who has to act as an integrator. I'm forced to be the integrator right now. I'm not very good at it. My wife is the consummate integrator. She is wonderful at that. I very much look forward to having her back in. All that to say, my staffing was woefully inadequate. I didn't even know what a VA was back then, virtual assistant. I hadn't tapped into any of that, and the insurance world wasn't really that way in 2018. It wasn't as much a thing as it is now.
Yep.
So we started. I had a young lady who ended up having a domestic incident. Her baby daddy showed up at my office, and I had to call the police. It was almost a really bad thing. And then she quit literally the day before we were supposed to open.
Mm.
The day before we were supposed to open. And I'm sitting here going, holy crap, I'm glad I've already hired who I thought was my front desk person. So I call the front desk girl who hasn't even officially started yet. I'm like, hey, here's this thing with the other girl. She's not here anymore. I know you signed up for this job. How about you do this one instead? You down for that? And she was. So we got her licensed, and the rest is history. It was just me and her for the first 6 months. Month 7, I hired a second full-time CSR. Month 8, I hired my first producer. And then last July, about 5 months ago, we hired our third full-time CSR, and I'm trying to hire 2 more right now. We've got a VA team through our management system, which is now Certs. Very happy with them. That's kind of our staffing situation. So I try to look at it as the metric I look at there is revenue per team member.
Mhm.
That's kind of my key thing of where we at as far as gross revenue and profitability. Those are the 2 main things that I'm looking at.
Which is
I
something
u-
nobody talks about. Why does nobody talk about this stuff? Why does nobody? Why does nobody focus? It seems like nobody focuses on
Well,
these metrics.
I
Yeah.
think what ends up happening is, James is a true business owner, and I don't mean this as a knock to other people. A lot of agency owners, it just kind of is the way it is. A lot of agency owners were producers that were given a business license, and while I'm sure James is a great producer, he's a business owner that happens to sell insurance, and so that perspective, I think, allows
Yeah,
him to look
it
at
just
it from the profitability, generating revenue. What's the real profitability? It's a business to him, whereas other people, they should, he's a visionary, like you said. A lot of people are, they're the technical, they're the tactical, and they happen to be given the responsibility of the business, and I think that that's a dangerous game to play.
if I hear it's one of my pet peeves. People will say, "Well, how much should I pay my employees? How much, how much should I pay my CSR?" And it's how much money you got, Mister or
Yeah.
Mrs. Like that's the question you should be asking. And if you don't have those things dialed in, it doesn't matter what you pay. You should
Yeah.
pay according to your P&L. You should look at your expenses. You should look at your revenue. You need to look at what's on that bottom line, how much money you actually have,
Well, how
and
does that make you feel, though?
make business decisions based on the numbers
Sure.
and your
Yeah.
growth rate and what you're planning on doing to to add to your bottom line growth. You never hear anybody talk about that, so it's refreshing to actually hear somebody mention these terms and metrics. Thank you.
Well, I guess you're welcome. I think there's a huge difference between an insurance agent and a business owner. And I don't mind saying it. I was an insurance agent for 7 years, and then we sold that captive agency, and I'm sitting here with $212,000 in the bank total for my family and the business, and I was forced to get real. I get real honest with myself and figure out exactly how we were going to be different. And I set the goal to be profitable within the first 18 months, which at that point I thought was insanity. I didn't see any way I was going to make it happen because in the first month of operation, I invested like 60 grand into office stuff and technology and personnel. So my $212,000 is now 150, and I haven't even really sold a policy yet. But we were able to turn profitable in month 16. And that was, being zero. I've never been so
Congratulations.
happy to be zero. Zero is a beautiful thing when you've been in the red for the first 16 months of operating. When I left that captive company, it was it was a roughly $16,000 a month in revenue. I had no idea what my profit was. I didn't even know what it was at that point because I was most concerned with premium and units because that's what they train you to do in the captive world. They don't talk about revenue. They don't talk about EBITDA. They don't talk about revenue per anything like the business metrics. They just don't talk about because that doesn't help them. It doesn't help you, I should say. It helps the carrier. But yeah, I mean, I replaced 6.5 years of captive income in 14 months as an
That's
independent
awesome,
agent.
isn't it?
That's incredible.
Congratulations.
I can't tell you. Thank you. Honest to God, I can't tell you how good that feels. I can't take anything close to all the credit for it. But man, that feels good.
So
It's just validation of taking the leap and jumping into the independent world.
so you basically start independent with effectively almost nobody.
Yeah.
And now you have this team that you've added to quite a. I'd say it's a pretty large team expansion in 20 months.
It's insane.
Talk about those people, because I think if I can make some assumptions here, I think you'd probably be one of the first people to give them a lot of credit for what they do
All of
and
it.
your success, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk about those folks. Where'd you find them? How did you train them?
My first hire was a young lady. I was very fortunate to know her parents well. Her dad is one of my mentors, and we know them from church. We were over at their house, strangely enough. We had a community group thing, and they happened to bring up that she was unhappy at this chiropractor's office she was working at, and my ears immediately perk up because I was trying to hire a front desk person at that time. It's like, well, you think she'd be open to having a conversation with me about this new insurance agency that we're about to launch? And they were like, you need to call her like right now. So I texted her that evening. It was like, hey, this is James. I'm a friend of your parents. I've met you once or twice. You babysat
non
for us.
creepy. This is not creepy.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, you want to have a job interview? I'm opening an insurance agency, and Your folks think it might be a good fit for you to consider. And she did. And I hired her 2 weeks later. And yeah, man, the whole notion of CSR, I think, is so antiquated. And I tell them that they are inside sales and
Yes.
service.
Yes.
Inside sales, service. I haven't exported the service to a licensed VA yet. I'm probably going to hire the first one within the next 2 or 3 months. Talked to Wes Anderson's team, Agency VA, had a great call with them. Andy Priestman also runs a great shop. If anybody's looking to hire a VA, I would talk to both of those guys. They both run an excellent company.
Both good
VA,
dudes too.
and they're both good human beings, like just quality people.
They know our industry.
I don't know either one of them that well personally, but all my interactions with both of them have been very positive. They're both incredibly humble and also incredibly successful in business and in insurance. I really admire both of those guys.
Yeah.
But the role that my team plays really is inside sales. They manage the entire sales cycle. They are the first ones that talk to that person when the lead comes in. And I'll talk about our customer acquisition and like lead generation here in just a second, because I know that always comes up. But they really take care of all of it. They quote the client, they close them themselves. I taught them how to close, and they do it very well. It's kind of weird hearing my words come out of their mouth. Feels pretty cool, if I'm being honest with you. It's like, you were listening when we did that coaching call. Yes.
Yeah, it's a good feeling.
But I didn't listen to phone calls, like recordings, and just like play them back for people, because nobody likes to hear themselves on the phone. Let's be real. Nobody likes to hear themselves on the phone. I hate hearing myself on the phone because I'm like, oh God, why did I say that? But we've gone through that process with them of refinement, where those young ladies have no background in insurance. One of them came from a property manager. My second hire, Addie, she was working at a residential property manager as their office liaison for all their contractors that did all the maintenance and repair and stuff for thousands of residential units. She was miserable. She was a daughter of a friend of mine here in McKinney, and was like, hey, are you hiring, James? And I'm like, is she your daughter? Yes, I'm definitely hiring, because you are a #boss babe and a complete badass. If she's anything like you, I want her right now. It was one of those sight unseen almost things. Like Addie interviewed,
Awesome.
and she interviewed really well. We didn't have the right fit for her. This was May of 19. I like put her thing on my desk, was like, I'm going to hire that girl. I don't know when.
We're
I
gonna
don't know
find a
what
position
for.
for.
I'm
Right.
going to hire her. And we ended up hiring her in October, 5 months after the first interview, for a different position. And she's just been everything I thought she would be.
She's awesome.
phenomenal.
Yeah, that's one of the things I found about your team, man, is and one of the things I love about them too, that I think is exceptional, is you found people that have they don't have industry experience, and you helped create the understanding from scratch. I know that's there's a lot of people that love the idea of hiring in the industry, and there's a lot of people that, it's kind of one of those things, you love it or you hate it. I think that there's a strong argument to be made that you did it the right way, no preconceived notions. And the other thing too, I'd imagine, is that, you take somebody who's done personal lines their whole life, 8 years, 10 years, whatever, you bring them into a model like yours. There might be an element of, square peg round hole there, because it's like a lot of that doesn't transfer. And I think that would give, you want to talk about heuristics. I think there's people that have a lot of cognitive biases, bringing in that experience that they had previously into a workplace like yours. I think that's really cool, man. You were able to train them from the ground up, able to, help them learn your processes, your systems. I think that's been incredible. And just my own interactions, just in relation to like the product of Better Agency. I love the willingness of them. We've hopped on a call. We have another one coming up here to make sure that, we can obviously grow the product to meet the needs of teams. And what I've gathered just from my short experience with them is that they're so open and willing to learn and be involved. And you almost have the vibe, and this is what I think is cool. You almost have the vibe of a family business. Like there's a level of like, it's not just about the money. You know what I mean? Like they show up. I can only imagine that oftentimes they come early and they stay late. You know what I mean? Like they just seem like
Well, they take ownership. There's a feeling of ownership.
That's a great
Well,
word
and
for it.
I think it all comes down to the golden rule. And, my belief system is an evangelical Christian background, living by that biblical worldview of treat other people the way that you want to be treated. Just how do I want my work life to be? If I were in their shoes, how would I want my boss to treat me? How do I want to be spoken to? How do I want to be praised? How do I want to be challenged? How do I want to be called out when I screw up? Those are the things. And you read all these books, man. Like my bookshelf is full. You guys are both readers. I know we probably read a lot of the same books. That's how you get buy-in. From the initial interview, our third hire, Rachel, she also no experience in insurance. She was working at David's Bridal and was miserable because holy cow, what an awful hen house to work at.
Yeah.
Just so much negative energy in that industry, on the
Really?
sales side of that industry. Just
I
an
imagine.
awful
You would
thing.
think it's a happy place.
You
Bridezilla is
might
a real
think that.
term.
You might think that.
Yeah.
All that to say, the first interview was, here's the deal. I'm not a helicopter boss. I have no interest in being over your shoulder. Don't come here if you want someone to micromanage you and spoon feed everything. If you want to do the same thing every day over and over again, and you don't want to be somewhere where you are expected to grow, where you're expected to have ownership of part of this business, please don't work here. Because if that's what you're looking for, I will be the worst boss you have ever had, because my expectations are very high. I love it. It's a real affirmation to hear you say that about it seems like a family business, because that's exactly what I'm going for. When we're having that conversation with people, I tell them up front, if you join my team, I expect you to work here for the rest of your career. And
And if you don't,
no, it's like, hey, here's the thing. I'm hiring you with the expectation that you're going to be here forever. I'm developing you. I'm compensating you. I am pouring into you.
I'm investing in you, right?
I'm
expecting-
caring about you with the expectation that you're going to be here forever. And if you're not, I expect you to leave for whatever the absolute best fit for you is. But just telling people that up front, setting the expectation of what we're hiring you for. Here's the box that you're being hired for. I expect you to be a self-starter. One thing, I don't have time clock. I've never had a time clock. I don't believe in a clock at all. You come in when you need to come in. You leave when you need to leave. It's roughly 8:30 to 5:30. Sometimes it's early. Sometimes it's late. Is the work done? Great. Good job. Go home. See you later.
Yeah.
But the whole notion of you are
100%.
going to be given ownership and expected to be awesome. I don't like the people that need an attaboy. If they need the come on, you can do it, that's not a good fit for my business model. I'm definitely I don't know, how do I say this? I look for a certain person. They're internally motivated. They have a drive to achieve. They have everything they need inside. It's not a mistake. It's not a coincidence that the people at our office none of them have worked in insurance previously, because I can teach insurance. I can't teach
Sure.
motivation. I can't teach ethics. I can't teach drive. I can't teach hustle. I can't teach attitude. Those are the things that I can never teach. The
Right.
stuff that I can teach doesn't matter. I don't care if you have it. I
well,
can teach
I,
you
and I would
that.
push back on that. I think you can teach that, but in the sense that you exude those things, and it starts from the top down and it permeates everybody down, and so you attract exactly what you are,
Yeah.
which is what you are, and then they see that modeled in the day to day, and that James doesn't leave until his work is done. He's the boss, and he's taking care of business,
Yeah.
and he's working just as hard, if not harder, than we are. And I think that stuff, that modeling, it's the same thing with my kids. My wife and I, we have to be careful on how we joke or we say stuff or what we do with whatever, because my wife will say, she goes, they're watching you,
Yeah.
and
They are too.
it's true, right? It's like, yeah, I didn't sit my 7-year-old down and say, okay, this is how the framework of the joke goes. Here's the punchline.
Yeah.
They just pick up on it, and
Yeah.
what they pick up on, it's not, it's, you want it to be the good stuff, sometimes it's the bad stuff. So, but I think what you do well is you don't say, hey, this is the way it's got to be, and then you don't do that. You're in
Yeah.
the trenches with them, and yes, you're running a business, but you're still working with your clients, you're still prospecting, you're still doing the things necessary to lead from the front. And I
Yeah.
think that is because I've worked with and for, and I've seen this myself with other agency owners. It's saying this, and then it's taking a nap at one
Yeah.
o'clock in the afternoon at your desk, and those two things don't align, and the team picks that up.
Yeah. No, I completely agree, man. And my goal is to always be that, 5 years from now, when there's 20 people on my team and we're pulling in 150,000 in revenue a month, I hope to be exactly the same person. Because that whole idea of you never manage more than 7 people directly. You build the org chart in such a way that everybody on your team is managing between 3 and 7 people, and you have that servant leadership from the top down that just sets the example of you. If you're managing too many things, if you're not delegating properly, then you can't be that good example because you simply have too much on your plate. The concept of the 4-step process to figure out if it's something that you're doing personally. I know you guys have probably heard this before, but for anybody who's listening or watching this that hasn't, the first question is, do we need to do this at all? Is this something that anyone on our team should be doing? And if not, well, then terminate. That's the first filter. Terminate this process or activity. The second one is this something any person on our team should be doing, or is this something that technology can take care of for us? Okay, well, automate. There's the second filter. Terminate, then automate. Then for the business owner, that third filter is this something that I should be doing personally? Okay, is this something on my team can be doing better than I can because I'm worth about $170 an hour? Is the work that I'm doing right now worth $170 this hour? If not, then delegate that sucker. And only after an activity passes, terminate, automate, and delegate. At that point, okay, now I'll consider doing it myself. And that's really the thing that I'm working on personally right now, is just being ruthless with those 3 filters. Should we terminate this? Can we automate this? Should I delegate this? And if it passes those 3, okay, now I'm going to do it.
Yeah. I've always
Otherwise,
said,
it's probably going to be canned.
I've said for a while, it's, I tell that to my team at the marketing agency, is you got to do the deal. Delegate it. If you can't delegate it, eliminate it. If you can't eliminate it, automate it. If you can't automate it, then lift it, like that's,
Oh, I like that.
yeah.
I
Gotta
like
do
that
the
a
deal,
lot.
man. Gotta do the deal. But
So
that's good. I mean,
we got like 5 or 6 minutes left. What do you guys want to hit on?
Well, let's talk about you mentioned it before. How are you spending your time prospecting and getting the people within your niche?
I think, to put it simply, because we're short on time, I'll say that the end buyer doesn't matter to me. I don't care about the person buying insurance. I don't prospect for the decision maker. I prospect for the channel partner, for the center of influence, to use captive agency language. I want the CPA, the business attorney, the financial advisor, the commercial banker, the large property manager. I want the person who knows a lot of my target prospect,
Mm.
the person who knows everybody that I need to know to be successful. Now, this is about to change because I'm about to hire Chris Langiel and local marketing,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
the LTM program.
Local traffic marketing. I think.
Local traffic marketing. Thank you, Preston. And Chris and Advisor Evolve do a phenomenal job for our website. It's so much more than a website. Gravity Forms is baked into it. It's a part of our sales process.
They're great.
Many times every single day. So shout out to Advisor Evolved. They're wonderful. We're about to start spending money on pay-per-click ads and SEO and all that stuff. So I won't be able to say this for too much longer, but to this point, I have spent $0 on ads. I've bought 0 leads. I have done
Which is how
nothing.
it should be, by the way. You need to
Yeah.
test your offer organically. I don't care what you're selling. You need
Yeah.
to prove that there's a market for it, whether for yourself as a skill set or as a service provider or whatever you're selling. There has to be, you have to prove that first before you jump into spending a ton of money on ads.
Yeah, man. No, I wholeheartedly agree. And I think that's really where a lot of our successes come from. I say this a little bit pridefully and a little bit of arrogance because I'm very proud of this. It must suck to be an insurance agent in DFW trying to go after real estate investors, because I am a 10,000-pound gorilla in this
I love
market.
it. I love it.
And I go hard after every single one of those posts on any of those real estate investor groups. And if someone asks for insurance, James and Riskwell are going to get tagged about 10 times. And
That's awesome.
I'm working on a large property manager right now. I've never met her before. We've corresponded previously. She was buying an apartment complex a year ago, and I wasn't able to seal the deal at that point. But she posted asking about fleet auto for her 23 vehicles. And I was tagged in the first 30 minutes. I was tagged 6 times on that thread. And now we're totally in the driver's seat for the whole account. And oh, by the way, she manages 2,000 single family homes
Wow.
for investors. I mean, that's a lot better than our average Facebook thing. But 100% of my activity is channel partners and social media, and everything we have comes in the front door.
Which
Our
I think
phone-
is how it should be for any. I mean, that's how you should approach a niche.
yeah.
You gotta go for the bundle, not for the always the individual thing.
Personal lines has its place, but we only do preferred package business, and it's only as a cross sell. We're not going out there saying, "Hey, can I quote your home and auto?" Because they're going back to the heuristic. You sound like everybody else if you're saying that.
Mhm.
We say no a lot more than we say yes, and it works for us.
That's the key to success in most things. Saying no, knowing what to say no to, and so that you can say yes to the right things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a good place to stop. I don't know. Hopefully you got something out of this. You're about to ask me, how do people get in contact with me if they want to chat about whatever?
I wasn't, but I think that's a good question.
Oh, sorry. I do a lot of these podcasts, and that's usually how it ends.
We
with,
didn't
"Hey,
want to. We
James,
didn't
if
want to
someone
sound like
wants to reach
everybody else.
out."
We didn't want to
Yeah.
sound like everybody else.
Oh, touche, good sir. Tip of the hat to you.
No,
So
but
never mind.
where can
Don't
folks
call
find
me
James?
and don't message me because I don't want to help you. Go away. No.
Well, especially if they're in the DFW area.
No, we're in 27 states. It's about to be 28 because I'm finally getting into California because our investors
Good luck.
have demanded it. I've intentionally avoided California because I know it's a pain to do business there. But yeah, if there's anything I can help anybody with in the investor space or contractors, roofing contractors, GCs, those are the 3 areas that we have a mountain of experience in. Everything else, I'll let somebody else talk about it because they're probably better than me.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to end it here. Thank you so much, James, for joining us on the Better Podcast. We appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
We appreciate your intel and your information. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. If you're watching this, make sure you hit subscribe. Any of the channels you're watching this, YouTube, Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere where this podcast is seen or heard. And we'll see you on the next episode.